Yeah. All right, we're ready.
Good morning, good Saturday morning to you all. Thank you for being here and welcome to What Would You Do, an interactive panel discussion on real-world choral classroom scenarios. Today's panel is comprised of some amazing educators and advocates. Combined, they bring a wide variety of experiences to the table, including K-12, collegiate, and community choirs. Maria A. Ellis, Girl Conductor, is a music education consultant, creator of diverse music resources, and conductor. Jasmine Fripp, the Passionate Black Educator, is a music curriculum specialist and anti-racist education trainer. Kanisha Howard, the Connected Black Educator, is a music educator and musician based in Georgia. Dr. Chantae Pittman is a high school choral director, adjudicator, researcher, and music education equity advocate. And unfortunately, she couldn't be here this morning due to a passing in her family, so I know we're thinking of her today. Christina Vehar, the Full of Heart Educator, is a middle school choral and theater director, advocate, clinician, and graduate student at the Florida State University. And the panel this morning is being moderated by Dr. Emily Williams Burch, coordinator of music education at the University of South Carolina, Aiken, the founding artistic director of RISE Chorales in Savannah, Georgia, and the host of the Music Ed Matters podcast. This session will feature an interactive panel discussion that will utilize action-based perspectives emphasized by diversity, social-emotional learning, and culturally relevant choral pedagogy to apply to real-world classroom scenarios. Session attendees will have the opportunity to submit questions about how to actively approach classroom scenarios, and the panel will discuss practical ways to support both students and the director in selected scenarios. Thank you for attending What Would You Do?
Good morning, everybody. You all can hear me okay, right? All right, so to start this session, we're going to start off with a little game. It's called conversation, okay? I need everybody right now get a state in your head, all right? If I come to you and you can't name a state, you are out, all right? This is how this works, all right? So this is how it starts. And it's a little rhythmic activity that you can use with your students, all right? So it goes, conversation, duty wop, clap, clap, clap. All right, everybody got this? Clap, clap, clap. So I'm starting conversation, duty wop. I'm thinking of names of states, starting with Missouri, Nebraska,
Florida, Carolina, Maine,
Alaska, Michigan,
Georgia, Mississippi,
California.
Wait.
Hawaii.
Let's do it again. This time think of girls' names, okay?
Hold on, I got you. I got a mic in the back.
Girls' names.
Check.
And if you say you're out. All right? Conversation, duty wop. Thinking of names of girls, starting with Maria,
Jennifer,
Winter.
What name was that? Winter.
I thought you said winter. I was like, oh, you must have had a question about that.
I thought it said Quinter. I was gonna say you made that up. Turn on to Dr. Burch. There you go.
Welcome. Thanks, Maria. That was so exciting. How did we get to this panel discussion and why are we here today? Because we all love choir, but because it started with Christina. And I called and asked if she would come speak to my music ed class because she was in the trenches at an elementary school. And she reached out to this dynamite panel and said, I'm gonna bring scenarios to them because I wish I had had more hands-on practice. We'll talk about the research behind that in a second. So then after we got together and had all these scenarios, I started to invite each one of them on the Music Ed Matters podcast. And why is any of this important? The point is to say today is just the beginning. It's meant to inspire and encourage you to have continued conversations. It all started in a classroom, but that's just the beginning, just like what we do. It starts in our rehearsals, and the possibilities are limitless. We want to model for you today how to have some of these harder conversations. So to kick that off, let's meet the panel. You will have a very, very short time to tell us where you live, your favorite teaching memory, whether you're a child or a teacher, and why you're excited for this session. I am Dr. Emily Williams Burch. My friends call me Emmy. I live in Savannah, Georgia, teach in South Carolina. My favorite teaching memory is when a bird flew into the school because the courtyard door was open, and I saw Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, and I was scared of birds, so I had the whole class hide under the piano lab, and I hid underneath my desk. And we were practicing scales at the moment on solfege, and we kept going underneath the pianos. So thank you, the bird did eventually get out. And that's my favorite memory. I'm excited for this session because I can't wait to hear what conversations you continue to have. Kicking it off to Jazz.
My name is Jasmine Fripp. I am a teacher in Nashville, Tennessee. I teach high school choir. My favorite teaching memory, truthfully, is a little more sentimental, was meeting Dr. Jeffrey Redding, because he was the first Black man I'd ever seen in front of a classroom. And that's the moment I knew that I wanted to teach. So that, and of course, being here, it's all been full circle. And
Why are you excited for the panel?
oh, because it's going to get really real. Oh, it's going to be really real. So kick it off to Kanisha.
Hello. Okay, I'm Kanisha. I am from Georgia. Taught mostly in Georgia. My favorite teaching memory is this on? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have my noise canceling earphones in, so I can't hear me right now. But my favorite teaching memory was showing that I was afraid of spiders, because a spider fell out of the wall, and I screamed, so you know, first graders scream, and now we're all screaming. And the lesson actually came from a child. I don't think it was me teaching at all. One of my autistic students who doesn't speak calmly got up and walked across the room, killed the spider, and walked up to me and whispered, "I got it, miss." So, yes, and I'm excited for this panel because we get to talk about those types of realistic things that we often keep to ourselves. And like she said, it's going to be real, really real. So, I'm passing it over to Christina.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Christina Vehar. I teach in Metro Atlanta, Georgia, in the Cobb County School District, and I teach middle school chorus and theater. My favorite teaching memory, not to sound cliche, but literally anytime my students' eyes light up and just getting to experience moments with them is definitely my favorite, and I'm excited about this because we all get to grow together today. Passing it off to Maria.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Maria A. Ellis. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, so I'm a visitor at this conference, but you all have made me feel like home, and I really appreciate that. My favorite teaching memory is when I was in the 4th grade. I had a Black male music teacher for the first time. His name was Mr. Timothy Hearns, and for warm-ups, we warmed up to The Wiz. And that was so good for me because The Wiz was is my absolute favorite movie. And at that time, I felt like, oh, he sees me, he got me. And so that was my favorite memory. I'm so excited for you all to be a part of the session so that we all could grow together in love and build relationships and come out of here even better choral directors.
In education news, the objective for today, music educators will be able to work together through discourse as a community to generate ideas, suggest possibilities, offer support, and inspire teachers at all stages of their career. I podcast, it's a lot of fun, but normally no one's in the room when I'm doing it, so y'all are making me nervous. Not gonna lie. So a little research to get you here, because that's where we come from. We had to know why these conversations were still feeling like we were missing things. And so I was digging in, and I want to be really honest, my hair is never straight. But it is straight on purpose today, because in one of these conversations with Maria, I was asking about how I could show up better for different cultures and different communities. And she said, it's very important to my community and myself that you show up in your very best. So I got up extra early, and I flat ironed my hair, because I felt that would show her that I was showing up. So, I'm showing up for you too. I even got eyeliner on, y'all. This is a big deal. But why is that important? Because it started with asking questions and doing the research. Now, what are we looking at? There's a lot of research out there on the perceptions of where we are as educators in preparedness. So I can give them credit. In 2015, there was a literature review by Colleen Conway, and the recommendations of this review was that we needed more hands-on, conversation-based opportunities to tie together what we were learning in our methods classes to make us better educators. Beyond that, Roy Leggett did a study that talked about the perception of early teachers, first few years of teaching, and what they felt they were missing. Those findings highlighted, again, more hands-on experience and conversations were needed, and this was pre-pandemic. Additionally, there was the need to have non-pedagogical issues discussed and encouraged to avoid burnout and everything that comes with running a program. So how can we help? We got together to ask the questions that would help address some of what the research says is missing. Now, whether you are a pre-service teacher, an early teacher, a mid-career, or a veteran, you need to continue having these conversations. We all have different difficulties every day. That's what makes our career so cool. It's never the same twice. We all have different solutions that we find because, in case no one told you, you matter and your creative ideas are awesome. Even if they're begged, borrowed, or stolen, technically. There's research that we can do together, and that's what we're doing today. Really informal research together. And through these conversations, we can address all the buzzwords like social emotional learning. Research moment done. It's time for the warm-up. You may only answer with yes or no questions. I suggest that you get your microphones ready because otherwise I will go right past you. The warm-up is yes or no questions only. 1, I've had a kid throw up in my classroom.
Nah.
Yes.
Yes. No.
No. I've walked into a rehearsal unprepared.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
No. Uncomfortable. I walked in to teach unprepared.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This year, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That, yes, definitely. I've cried at school.
Last week.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I made it to the car. I've napped during my planning period or lunch.
Before I boarded the flight. Yes.
In the storage closet, yes.
I have a nap fort underneath my desk, so
That's it.
yeah.
In the bathroom, yes.
I'm gonna win this one. In the cello case, because it was padded. I've had to ask for help before.
All the time.
Yes.
Absolutely.
5 minutes ago.
Did you see me this morning? All right, so now that we're warmed up, it's time for our first question. While you're going through these first questions, keep in mind what questions you have, because it will open up to you in a moment, because you have sticky notes for accessibility or technology. You'll see that in a second. So as we're going through these questions, if you think of something, feel free to jot it on your sticky note or get ready for some technology. Question 1, what does your first day of school look like?
All right, so my first week of school, I'm really big on building joy and choir culture. We have to build joy. So first day, we go around the room, and I just came up with this name for this activity like 2 seconds ago. I call it Start a Riot. So basically, everybody gives their name and one unpopular opinion that they have. And then we either agree or disagree, and we probably talk about it. So for example, I believe that Thin Mints actually taste like chocolate and toothpaste and are absolutely disgusting. And y'all are talking now. And that's how I begin to start to build my choir culture, because I want them to feel comfortable with each other. I want to get them talking immediately. So I start a riot. That's my first day, and a couple days after that as well.
My first week or rotation also kind of looks the same, but most of my experience in elementary school, so we always get the wiggles out. And then I kind of treat them, if you've ever seen the movie Freedom Riders, when she does the game, when you start asking questions and you step closer or you step on the side. So I do that with them, kid appropriate questions. And then we create a circle, and we call this space Honesty Circle Time. And Honesty Circle Time is where I remind them that in this space, they are allowed to be children. So no matter what is going on, you know, you can be a child, and I let them know I'm going to be a kid with you, because Miss Howard did not get to be a kid when she was a kid. She was doing a lot of what you were doing, is what I say with them, taking care of siblings or, you know, being the intelligent one. But in here, we don't have to be any of that. And so I developed that, and then we start with an emotion that maybe everybody attaches to, and I usually tend to pick sadness and anger at the same time, and we go around and we try to pinpoint how that makes us feel. There's a song involved, there's, you know, steady beat stuff going on, and I really spend the first week and the first days developing a sense of belonging.
Adding on to building relationships and community, which I think is so important, I think it's also good to give your students a way to let them know about you in a way that's safe for them. So I always make sure that I have some sort of like about me sheet that tells me like, what name do you prefer to be called? What are your pronouns? Am I allowed to use that in class? Am I allowed to tell other adults in the building? And just giving them a safe space and letting them know that this classroom is a safe space immediately, and you can tell me in the way that makes you comfortable, and giving them a way to do that as well.
I love the family atmosphere. I make sure I tell my students day one, we are a family, and as a family, this is what we do, and this is what we don't do. So I don't tolerate them talking about each other or things like that, because that's not family. That's not what we do. So I build that, but I also learn names. Names are so important to me, and how to pronounce the names. So I'm going to show you all an activity that I do. It's called Tell Me Something Good. I stole this from somebody else. You can steal it from me. I'm not upset, okay? So it goes, y'all know the song, it goes, tell me something good. Clap. All right, so we're gonna go, no, not like that. Wait, let me show you. So it goes, tell me something good. Clap. Then they're gonna tell me their name, they're gonna tell me something about them, and then they're gonna tell me their favorite song. Why? Their favorite songs are gonna become part of my warm-ups. Clean versions, but it's gonna become part of my warm-ups. But that lets them know that I see and I hear what you said. So if Nook, If You Book is your favorite song, we're gonna find a way to Nook, If You Book in our classroom. So we're gonna do it, I'm gonna show you. And also, this is how the rest of the class learns names and how to pronounce it. So we're gonna play it just for a few seconds. So everybody singing, 1, 2, 3. Everybody sing, tell me something good. Tell me your name, tell me something about you, and your favorite song. Go.
My name is and something about me. I am from Eastern North Carolina, and my favorite song is favorite song right now. Pick one. I got a lot of time.
We don't have.
No, we don't have. Not at all. Favorite song.
Look, if you both.
His favorite song is okay. So what's his name, guys? There. All right, here we go. Tell me something good.
Hey, I'm Will. I have a 16-month-old decided to go home and play piano with. And my favorite song that I like to do with my kids is Earth, Wind, and Fire, September.
What's his name, everybody?
Will.
What's his name?
Rivera.
What's my name?
Maria.
All right, so then we do that around the whole class until I learn everybody's name. So we learn everybody's name, and we learn how to pronounce it correctly. My name is not Marie. If you call me Marie, I will not answer you. I will sit and look at you. Because that's not my name. And I want you to call me Maria, and not Marie or Mariah or some other version of M-A-R-I-A, okay? So that's one activity that I do on the first day of school.
Awesome. Hey, Jazz, will you transition us with 2 claps?
2 claps on 2. 1, 2.
Thank you. Question number 2. You have to call a caregiver. Notice the word is caregiver, not parent. That's very important. So what do you do? Let's talk about it. Christina, kick us off.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that it's so important to build positive relationships with the families first. If your first phone call home is about something negative, why are they gonna wanna listen to you? You know, and so you have to celebrate every single student, and you have to make sure that you are finding all those wonderful things and positive things about them, and creating those connections. And if you have those relationships built and you create that community, then when you do have to deal with something harder, it's gonna be a whole lot easier, because they're gonna know who you are, and they're gonna know your heart and your heart for the students, and it's gonna be so much easier to understand. And so I think that start with building the community and building the relationships, and then when you do arise with a situation that's a little bit tougher, it's gonna be so much easier, so much easier.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to dive into some harder questions in a second, but Maria, can you transition us with ho-ho?
All right, so this is one of the attention getters that I use with my students. Y'all remember the song Hip Hop Hooray? Oh. All right, so this is how I use it with my students. When I say hey, you say ho. Hey, ho. Hey, ho. Hey, hey, hey. Ho, ho, ho. There we go.
Thank you. All right, here we go into some tougher questions. What is the difference between serving and heroing? Let's kick off with defining those, Jazz.
All right. So serving is to be of service to your community and your choir. Heroing is to be of service to yourself. All right? An example of that, even in your repertoire. Some of y'all be so anxious, ready to impress the choral elitist. I want to do this rep because it will make me and my choir look good. But repertoire songs, they're meant to plant seeds in the lives of the babies that we work with. You could see that yesterday in a lot of those concerts. With Stillwell, Cordova, I'm still recovering from the Aeolians, forgive me. You could see that. Though they were very intentional about the songs that they chose. And it was to be of service to those kids that were in front of them. They needed this song to get through. There's a balm in Gilead. They needed that song at the end to get through. Furthermore, if you look at the conductors and the way that those students respond to them, you could tell those 3 black men are of service to their choir. And because of that, the choir was of service to them. So if you want to be of service, if you want to be serving, you are of service to your choir and your community. If you want to be a hero, then you're just thinking about yourself.
Awesome. Thanks for those definitions, Jazz. Christina, let's talk about program building in regards to serving and heroing.
Yeah, I think in regards to program building, and again, I'm going to talk about relationships with community all day, I feel like, because I think that that's the base for everything. You know, if you are serving, then you are finding what that community needs and what they want and how you can serve that. And I think it's really important too to involve the community and the students in the creative process. If you're serving, that's what you're doing anyway. But if you're hearing, like Jazz already said so well, and I don't think I even need to build on it, is that you're doing it for yourself, and that doesn't make any sense. You're not doing the music world any sort of good if you're just doing it for yourself.
Awesome. Maria, will you take it and give us some action steps? What do we need to do in this process?
So I have the awesome pleasure of teaching at a high school that hasn't had a choir in over 20 years. So what they need from me is to serve. So what I came in and I did is I got to know them for them. If you guys use this type of language, okay, I'm not going to use it, but okay, that's what we do here. Okay, I built relationships with them. I chose music that they could relate to. When we were sight reading, we sight read to Notorious Big because that's what they relate to. And so that's how I built relationships with my students and also built trust. I told them every day, I'm going to show up, I'm going to look my best, my hair is always going to be done, my nails are always going to be laid, because that's important in that community. That if I come in looking like who did it and what for, they're not going to pay me any attention because they don't respect that. So I show up looking good every day. I also show up with love. Every day I tell them I love them and I appreciate them. Even when they're getting on my nerves, I tell them, y'all getting on my nerves, but I love y'all to death. So I show that to them every day. That helps build relationship.
Awesome. All right, Kanisha, can you give us the transition? Oh no, you have to talk about belonging. You can't heal your children if you haven't healed yourself. That's a quote from Kanisha, not mine.
That is, and it kind of takes my breath away every time. Just because I identify with it personally. So, in serving and self-heroing and teaching and creating a sense of belonging and doing what we do and wearing all of the hats, we often forget about ourselves because we are giving, and not paying attention to the us inside that also needs to be fed. And so what I do, as I said before, establishing that honest space where we can all be human and they can see that I make mistakes, I have a life outside of here, I'm not just Miss Howard, I'm not just your music teacher. We cannot teach children or anyone to transcend musically if we cannot feel and be in touch with ourselves. So you are worth your healing journey. Your children are worth your healing journey. The music is worth your healing journey. And everybody deserves to know and understand emotions outside of music, but also with music. So one of the things that I truly believe, there's music therapy, and I love that. I love what it does for people. But it's also still kind of very focused. I believe that people need music and therapy. So I infuse those things that we would go to a therapist and talk about into my lessons and into the building of the community, and it makes them feel like they belong somewhere, like it's okay for them to have emotions. It's okay for them to feel, to fail, to succeed, to acknowledge that, maybe they're not okay. And maybe you're not okay. And that's also okay. And so this also kind of runs into the transition piece.
We're gonna do one quick comment from Maria before the transition.
No.
You're good? Okay, cool. Yeah, transition it.
I was just hosting for her.
It's also kind of runs into the transition piece of the moments of peace thing. So honesty circle transition into moments of peace. What are moments of peace? We talk about our standards, our principles, and everybody wants us to standards. I include the children in that. I let them know the reason I'm so hard on you about following instructions is because I also have to follow instructions. When I create a lesson for you, I have these standards that I have to follow. We talk about rests and how it's always hard for just people in general to rest. That also translates in real world. We don't know how to rest. We're always going. We never stop. And so moments of peace, just in case somebody ever comes to observe you and your room is in silence, you preface this with, we are practicing listening to and analyzing music. Silence is musical. This is also if you're in places that are not used to maybe classical music or anything, where you can introduce sounds to them that they've never heard. But it starts with a discipline piece, that does not all start with the music. It starts with self you and self the student. My kids, when I started, everything was a weapon, and excitement meant punch your neighbor. I had to put all of the instruments back, take everything out of the room, and focus on the child. And moments of peace came about when we get too rowdy and we don't know what to do and nobody's listening and you just We are going to practice listening to and analyzing music. The first music note that we're going to learn about is the rest. You may sit on the edge of your chair, feet flat on the floor, left, right, hold still. You will notice the tension, and you start to talk about the tension piece, which also translate over into how do I relax when I'm singing? This is all going together, right? And I give them 5 minutes. It's a lot for, K through 5, like 20 seconds is a lot. And this was a little harsh, but my kids needed it. You can tweak it as much as you need to. 5 minutes, peaceful music, and a clock on the wall. You find a spot, not next to a friend, a neighbor. You can close your eyes, you can lie down, you can stand up. We are silent. If you make a noise because it's uncomfortable, the timer starts over. So it can be 5 minutes, or it can be 45 minutes. They start to learn, okay, this is for me. this is for me. And then those songs, I used her Tell Me Something Good that they give you. You start to use the instrumentals during that time. And if you transition moments of peace into moments of honesty, you can ask how the music made them feel. They're connecting. Things are starting to go off. They're learning to trust you. They're learning to trust themselves, and they're learning, that it's okay to be free in that space. So moments of peace are usually 5 minutes. It does align with your standards. You can use any music. No one speaks. They're listening to, and then at the end piece, once everybody is calm and the wiggles are out and then nobody's hitting the neighbors, you can proceed with your lesson. And with the self-care piece, I want to say this, and I know this is not the end of the session, but this also jumpstarts where we're getting ready to get headed with the next question. At the end of each long day, when you feel like you did not get to do what was on your list of things to do, the program is not coming together, you're burnt out, you want to quit, and everything, and you get home and you cannot cut off work, you need to take the time out to do a moment of peace for yourself at home. And when you do that, remember these words if you can. You need to greet yourself with grace, with love, and with humility. And if all you did in a day's work, you've seen this all over the place, was survive, be proud of you for that. Your children needed you to survive that day. You needed you to survive that day. Remember to breathe, embrace the love around and inside of you for you, and go lay down.
I'm about to go lay down.
There's our transition.
Go lay down. Go lay down.
What a perfect transition for your questions. This is going to stay up for a couple minutes. There are a few ways to pose questions. You have a Post-it note if you need more. I'll be walking around in a moment. You can scan this awesome QR code. You can put in that very long and cumbersome web link. But again, remember, you have Post-it notes. Thanks, Vic. You have Post-it notes. This is your opportunity to pose questions. When you put a question in Padlet, P-A-D-L-E-T, you can like it, you can make comments on it, and that will help me pick what question we're going to go to from here. I'll take a couple more seconds for pictures. Again, there's Post-its if you want Post-its, but don't worry, it's also on this screen. Don't hate me because I changed it. You're okay. Okay, backwards. Okay. So we're going to talk about our last posed question before we get to your questions. Mr. Ariane Harley Emerson, the chair of ACDA's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, came on the podcast and talked about ADEIBR, accessibility, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and repair. So we're going to popcorn around the room here at our panel, and let's start with talking about what is accessibility.
So I think it's important to remember that accessibility has multiple terms, right? So you want to think mental, physical, emotional, community-based accessibility in terms of literally everything. And I wanted to pass my mic on to somebody that's part of the disabled community because I think it's important to hear other people's voices. So I don't want to speak for that community, so I have a video from my mom.
We all take so many things for granted every day. I can't. Disabled students can't. Disabilities can stop a person from getting up and simply walking or carrying books or a backpack. And once at school, opening the heavy fireproof doors is almost impossible. Disabled people encounter numerous access barriers every single day. No elevators, handicapped bathrooms clearly designed by non-disabled people, and so much more. People treat you differently if they see you in a wheelchair or see the prosthetic. I know this because people have honked at me or shown me a special finger while I am crossing a road because I walk just a bit slower than someone with 2 legs. When I'm out in my wheelchair, people won't look me in the eyes. I'm invisible. People choose to exclude instead of include. But if I'm walking with my prosthetic on, people treat me better. Question? How did your opinion of me change from when I was walking in the store or dancing outside to when you saw my disability? Be honest. I don't think people mean to do it, but the difference is tangible. See how your students deal with their challenges, be empathetic, talk to them. They want to dance, talk to people who look them in the eyes, be included, be seen, be treated with respect, just like everyone else.
I'm going to pass it on to Jazz to talk about
Diversity.
Alrighty, so I'm actually going to talk about diversity and equity because those two things go hand in hand. So, you cannot have sustainable diversity without equity. I had a conversation with my homegirl, Carla Bell. She's known as the Graceful Educator. And she said, you cannot have equity without humanity. And I went even further to say equity without humanity is just a checklist to verify compliance. White folks, I love y'all dearly. But one thing that I know for certain is that y'all love a checklist more than y'all love Starbucks. And y'all love Starbucks because I seen the line at the Marriott. I seen it. Okay? Early in my equity work, a lot of white folks would come up and ask me, hey, how do I get more Black kids in my choir? When they ask me that, I immediately know that they want me to tell them what they want to hear, a checklist. Here's what you do. You go to this athletic team and you recruit them. You go to this side of town and you recruit them. You implement hip hop in your class by having them sight read nothing but. Just go to Jasmine Fripp's Teacher Pay Teacher. Come on, plug.
Come on.
Go to Jasmine Fripp's Teacher Pay Teacher and download it from here. You want me to give you a checklist of things to do. What you need to hear is that your choir, your culture is a direct reflection of your intention. Kids know when you have no intention of looking out for them. They know when you're trying to be the hero. They know when you're trying to be the savior. So all that to say, you can't have equity without humanity. You have to do the work. If you're not doing the work, it's going to look real. We're going to be able to know. How do you do the work? You read. You have these tough conversations, even if it's painful. You decenter yourself. Y'all, it is okay for you to decenter your voices. If you don't know the answer, it's fine. Go to a culture bearer. Because if you're constantly trying to diversify your rep, which is very surface level work, and you're teaching it incorrectly, now you're a culture barrier. You're in the way, okay? You implement, and remember, if you just do it one time, it is performative. This is a cycle that you have to keep doing. It's gonna hurt. You're gonna get burned a couple times. But hey, the labor is upon all of us and we gotta do it. So that's my take on diversity and equity.
Kicking it off to inclusion.
So I have inclusion, and one thing that I would say about inclusion is everybody wants to feel like they belong, especially in our classrooms. You want to feel like your teacher sees you, they see everything about you, and you want to feel like you are a part of that choir. So one thing that I want us to think about is the books that we choose in our classroom, the music that we choose, the posters that we choose, the warm-ups that we choose. If you only choose things from your culture, then you're leaving somebody else out. And I have to be cautious of that too. I can't only include gospel and spirituals and hip hop because that's me being non-inclusive to my students. So I have to teach them some things that I learned from other communities. So I go to people who I know are specialists in those areas. My teacher is a barbershopper, Dr. Jim Henry. He's huge into barbershop. So I go and I learn warm-ups from the barbershop world, and I bring that over to my students. The posters on my walls, they include all colors. So I have these fabulous sofa hand sites at girlconductor.com that you could use in your classroom. But I created it because I would go to classrooms and not see things that look like me. I would only see white hands making the signs. Well, that tells me Well, maybe black hands don't do that because I don't see it. And if I don't see it, it doesn't happen. There used to be a joke in the black community that we would never have a black president. Why? We couldn't see it. Well, my children were born in 2009 and 2010. So all they know now is a black president. That's what they knew at first because they saw it. The generation coming up now, they can now see women in the White House. Why? Because we have a female vice president. We see it. And if you can see it, then it's real. That makes sense to everybody? So we have to be cautious that we make sure that everybody is included and seen. When you choose books for your students, choose books about kids being kids, not kids doing something that has to do with civil rights or spirituals or slavery or stuff like that. Why? I'll tell you why. I don't want to hear that. As a little kid, I don't want to know that. I don't want to know why. That could have been my mother, my grandmother, somebody in my family who could have been one of those people. We talk about critical race theory, even though we don't really know the real meaning of what they talk about. We talk about that, but nobody never said, what about the black kids who have felt depressed in all those years when we had to sit and learn about slavery and your mama was beat and stolen and blah, 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 blah. We don't want to hear that. Yeah, we know it's our history. We know that. But sometimes I just want to hear about kids being kids. I play dress up, and there's a book about me playing dress up and being a princess. So look at those things. If you need a book list, let me know. I have one on my website that I'll give you for free, okay? So those are things you can do to make sure that everybody feels included in your class.
Before we get off to belonging and repair, it actually aligns perfectly with some of the questions we're getting, and we have to pop on because we have to stay on our timeline. That's my job. Okay, so someone asked, what do we do if we make mistakes in our careers at some point? Mistakes are inevitable. That is cultural humility. What do we do? And that aligns perfectly with belonging and repair.
That's beautiful. Thanks for whoever said that, because I just wrote down, be honest with yourself and with your students about what you know and what you don't know. When they see us, we know everything about music to them. But is that really true? No. So when they ask those brilliant questions that throw you off of your lesson game because you're like, oh, I didn't think of that, you know, don't turn on the fake hat of let me be Google and Wikipedia finds this answer. No, don't do that. Say, you know what, guys? I don't know. And they're gonna be like, your first time you say that, if you have not done that with your kids, like, I don't care if they're high schoolers or what, they're gonna be like, what? What you mean you don't know? Now, high schoolers, you know, they might meet you with a little attitude, like, what you mean you don't know? You know, little kids are gonna be like, oh my goodness, I don't know either, you know? And it's okay, and in being that vulnerable and honest, you are practicing being accessible to them. You don't know. You are including diversity and equity because you don't know. And you can say, but you know what, guys, I'm gonna find out. And that might detour the lesson a little bit because Google is our friend. They have access to absolutely everything we have access to. Use it to your advantage in your classroom to create that sense of belonging.
I'm gonna throw something in here. How many of y'all have Facebook pages? Raise your hand if you have Facebook, Instagram, all those social media sites. You know, now we have access to each other for Facebook friends. So what I don't know, I can definitely ask one of my choral friends what I don't know. When I get ready to program a piece that's not from my culture, I have no problem. I'm gonna use Chris because I call Chris all the time. Chris, can you help me with this? And then me and Chris have a conversation and he helps me. And now since we can Zoom, I can have Chris in my classroom. I'll give him some coins because you need to pay people for their time. But I have him come into my classroom and he helps my students. And I don't have to know everything. I tell my students day one, I'm gonna mess up. So if I'm messing up, you can feel free for you to mess up too. And it's all good because we all learn it together.
Yes. These are some great questions and some great answers. If you want to learn more about repair, I highly recommend checking out Mr. Ariane Harley Emerson's episode on the Music That Matters podcast. He does a great job and he deserves all the credit for that slide. We have some questions. I'm going to keep it on timed. If you want to continue conversations when I cut them off, that's what social media is for. And I'm sure that at the end, there's a beautiful Canva thing that will have all the social media connection things for you. How do you address A class-wide bullying issue. Is it a public type thing or pulling students aside? When is it appropriate to address the whole class? You have a minute, go.
Learn to read the room. You know when something needs to be addressed. You know, you've seen it in your classroom, you know how your classroom is run. If it is something that is an umbrella and you need to shift your lesson into, let's talk about how words make us feel. You can use whatever song you're singing at the time. I'm pretty sure there's some message that aligns with what is going on. And don't attack the student that is attacking themselves or other people. But let's say you saw somebody in the back get excited and they shoved the person next to them. And you could just remind them, hey, so when you're feeling excited, or when you're feeling sad, or when you're feeling angry, do you like for people to touch you? And immediately everybody's like, well, no. And what that does is it causes the person that maybe did it to think about what they actually just did, because honestly, it's probably a reaction first. They didn't even know what happened until after it happened. And then what you're doing is you're subconsciously teaching all of the lines, even though you're directly speaking to the person that you saw in the back of the room touch their neighbor.
Time. If you want to talk to Jasmine Fripp and what she was going to say,
Kanisha.
No, Kanisha.
Kanisha Howard.
Yeah, but you were going to talk too. You
Oh,
want to talk more with
okay.
Kanisha? You were going to pick up that mic. I'm watching the microphones.
Read
You know what's my job. If you want more, they're up there. As a new teacher, what's one of the best ways? I am throwing this at Maria. As a new teacher, what's one of the best ways to get invested and involved with the community?
So if you're going into a new space, spend some time in the community, spend some time at the local churches, spend some time at the games. When I was coming to the high school, I researched everything I could about the high school, its history. I went and sat through meetings with the high school people. I watched the students at the high school, how they kind of got along with each other before I went in and planted myself as a choir teacher. I learned about the community first, and then I went and did what I had to do.
Fantastic, that was nice and fast. All right, so oftentimes when we discuss diversity, we talk about including students of color or minorities. But what do you do when minorities are the majority and you have a sprinkle of the majority? Of course, you don't want to lose them, but you also don't want to take away freedom of space, of safe space for your minority students, especially in a world where oftentimes they are shown there aren't many spaces for them.
You said when minorities are the majority?
Sprinkles, majority.
Less white kids in.
Oh, well, they're the majority.
Cool, what do you do?
So you teach to the majority. They're the, if you're white coming to a black space, the black kids are the majority in that space. So you have to learn that culture. When I taught at the white school, I taught at the white school first, my student teaching, I was the minority, but they were the majority. So I didn't go in there with all my gospel hymns and stuff like that. That ain't their culture. So I had to learn what they love. We was all Taylor Swift. That was their culture.
I want to hear you sing some Taylor Swift.
I think the question is posed, like, I'm teaching predominantly school, people of color. However, my ensemble is not persons of color. I have a sprinkle of people of color in my choir, although that is predominant race.
Or vice versa.
I asked a question.
Okay,
The
cool.
question is, so I was a black student. I'm in school predominantly African Americans. I got African American Latino kids. I have one Asian, awesome musician. I just want to know what do I do to make sure that he feels included? Because sometimes the culture is different. He's used to. I want to continue to make sure that he feels included. And this is also a safe space.
Thanks for that clarification.
So I actually had that scenario last year. I teach at a predominantly Black and Latinx school, and we have a family of Vietnamese students. So I was very intentional about building a relationship with that student and getting to know the type of music that they love and their culture and whatnot. And eventually they felt comfortable enough to say, hey, can we sing this song for my culture? Finding ways to make sure that they feel included and celebrated within their culture is key.
We had a choir that had Asian students who were in a foreign exchange program. And my professor purposely chose an Asian piece, and those students taught us the language so we can be authentic with the language. And that helped them, like I talked about, like, how y'all feel about that? And it's like, we really felt seen and we felt valued because we're using our language and we got to teach. instead of somebody else trying to tell us how to say our words.
And just a small add-on to that. Sometimes it's not a direct thing. Like it's not something you maybe go ask the child because again, I mean that child can be Asian, but what if that's not the culture musically that they grew up in? So what you can do is, well, I do. This is what I learned today, and it's always something maybe world music wise, and you can mention something about the culture because what if that child just didn't even know? So then in turn, you've taught the entire classroom as one inclusively about something that nobody knew. And then maybe that child did know, and then they're surprised that you know. Then that creates a sense of belonging for that student, to then in turn maybe come to you and be like, hey, I like that. And then they'll probably share more with you that you can share with their class and you can do it that way as well.
Awesome. I think this framework provides an excellent resource for getting started with any situation, whether you're in the majority or the minority situation, using this not as a checklist, but as an action steps, making sure that everything goes against this as a biomarker. How do you continue to innovate lessons and musical repertoire when your students are limited not by their ability, but by your ability to invest time because of other obligations, like other jobs, family, and all the things that get in the way?
Involve them in the creative process. Let them be a part of the lessons. If you have a student-led classroom, that can be so powerful.
Yes.
If you are letting them help with the research and letting them help with the lessons, think about the endless possibilities. I'm one mind, but if I open it up to all of my other minds in the classroom, then I don't have one possibility, I have hundreds.
Yeah, I completely agree. Getting your students involved in the creative process, helping choose the rep, basically delegate, hey, you're going to be over this, you're going to be over that. Basically having a student-ran classroom not only saves you time, but it's also building up their capabilities to lead and venture into other things, because we know as music teachers that we're more than just music teachers. The possibilities are endless within our ensembles, and you're now opening their world up to different possibilities and different career paths as well.
And this can also be done at the elementary school level.
Yes.
Become acquainted with what they're doing in their other classrooms around them. Language is rhythmic. Get first grade, second grade, kindergarten, get all of their spelling words and create a center. They're used to centers in their regular classroom. Create the centers, do it home first. This is how we do these things. And after everybody has done each of the centers that you want to implement in your classroom, I will never forget the first day my classroom ran itself. And in spaces that I've been in, it's impossible to anyone that looks at the situation that I was in. And it felt awkward, but it was empowering. Because I sat down at my desk for the first time in like 3 years when it happened, and I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, I didn't think I'd make it this far. And then like, I went over to the table, I was like, y'all don't need me? They was like, no, miss, we good. And so now, that gave me a chance to learn from them. Like, okay, the process works. Sometimes we need to see that our processes are working, right? So don't be afraid, and it works at the elementary school level. And it still aligns with your standards.
I have a few quick fire questions. How do you handle caregivers who are just as, quote, jacked up as the child?
That's a great question.
I'm asking for Mrs. Ames.
So my way of communication is always through love. So if you jacked up, that's fine. I'm gonna love you through that jacked upness. And then I just try to help love them through it. So like if I got kids who are late because their parents are late, I can manage that. I can tell you that the concert starts at 5:30 because I know you are 30 minutes late. Yeah. So if I tell you it starts at 5:30, you'll get there at 6 in love. And nobody has to know that you got told the wrong time. So that's one thing how I manage. It's all about love. It's love and how we present things. I would never call a kid or call a parent out like, you're always late, blah, 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 blah. Honey, what's your situation? You need help? You need me to pick him up? What do you need? You need a ride? He need a uniform? You need to have, I'll have it right here for him. Just get him here, honey. I got it already ironed. Sorry, St. Louis came out. I have it already ironed. He can put his outfit on right here. I got you.
I love it.
Also, you definitely make sure you love on the parent, but be stern. At the end of the day, student ran or not, that's your program. You know what you vision for that program. The parents just gonna have to get on board, all right?
What barriers can I help you remove? What resources can I find for you? I am here for you, what do you need? Always asking that question, and no matter how many times you get smacked in the face, showing back up because it's the kid that matters, and that parent just needs the hug, whatever their version of a hug looks like. Can I please answer the next question, because I'm super excited
Go
about
for
it.
it.
Someone asked, how do new people get invested in their community or in their professional organizations, especially if they're an introvert? You come find me, and I will take care of you. Please, I have enough extrovert to go around, and I will happily introduce you to the whole universe. And if I don't know someone, I will introduce you to someone else who can. My name is Emily Williams Burch. You call me Emmy, so then I know we're friends. And all of us, we will be here for you. Now, I know that initial step up to the extrovert. Just tell me you're an introvert, and I'll take the step back.
And as an introvert, please reach out, because y'all, listen, if it weren't for this profession, I would hibernate all the time.
And us extroverts got you. We
Yeah,
got
got
y'all. Yeah.
Hey, this last question is kind of an audience vote, because I love that you guys are commenting on the Padlet. That is absolutely beautiful, and I'll see if there's a way to export this and get it on the app so you can see our community having those conversations. So stoked. All right, this is a vote. Should white teachers use the term African American or Black when discussing issues of race or other in the classroom?
Great question. I think it depends on who you ask. For me, you can say Black, and I'm not offended. For some people, they want you to say African American. But for me, if you say Black, that's fine. If you just say, I want to use this style of music, that's even better. You may not even have to put a color on it.
Do we want to put it out for a vote in the room?
Go ahead.
All right, all in favor of you would like to be called African American? All in favor of I'm cool with being called Black? Anyone who wants to vote? Anyone have a say? You can talk.
Did you vote?
No one voted. Doesn't matter? Yeah, doesn't matter?
Black.
I like it when you talk. I like the cacophony of noise.
Black.
Yeah?
Black.
So, like, black is, so when we say black, right? Black is more inclusive of the entire aspect.
Yes.
So now, the thing is, the modern day concept of African American is primarily designated to those who have been from the transfer to the transatlantic slave trade. We call it the title like American descendants.
Okay.
Right? But we want to include our brothers and sisters from the diaspora all over.
Perfect. Is it appropriate to ask what would we do?
That's that's also like Maria would say, that's like, who you ask.
Okay.
Some people, it depends on what in the space that you're in. If you're having sort of a personal encounter, and we get comfortable, there's a few drinks, and we can have a real conversation.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the case.
Perfect. And it goes back to that conversation. I love you. Say it, go fast.
Okay, it's just gonna be fast. So approach these conversations with your students by using humanity and then explaining what different cultures do. This does not directly call them out on their color or, and if you have developed that sense of belonging, then you can ask a student what you prefer to be called, and they know, good. If they don't press. Just address the room as humanity first, and then teach the different cultures.
No matter where you are in your journey, pre-service, beginning career, mid-career, thriving as a veteran and showing us how to do life. No matter where you are, make the choice to get on that escalator and level up, whatever that next level is for you and for your students. And if you're nervous, just take one step. It takes one step to get on that escalator to the next level. You can reach out to any of us. We all have lots of amazing things going on. We'd love to hear from you. It's been an honor to serve you today. We're gonna popcorn with the last question. The coolest thing you have coming up that you want them to know about. Ready, set, go.
So definitely follow me on all social media platforms. The coolest thing I have coming up, I have a book deal with GIA. So you should be looking for a book from me in 2023.
Sweet. Kanisha, go.
All right, so for me, I am merging both of my musical worlds. I actually just dropped a single on the R&B side called Nights in Charlotte, and it is under Vacate World. So feel free to stream that if that is your genre. Even if it's not, I will have things coming across all of the genres in the coming year, so that's it.
Thanks.
I'm working on composing my first treble literature because I came from elementary world before this. And we need more quality literature in elementary land. So I'm working on that, and then I get to start my second semester in the FSU MME program. And if you need to know anything about like graduate school or whatever, come talk to me. I would love to like connect you.
Yes.
The coolest thing I have coming up in 2023, I will be making my conducting debut at college.
I have a book coming out in June. I hope that you can find it. It's with my co-author, Alex Gardner. It is The Business of Choir, and it's great for accompanying those music ed courses that you have and filling in the gaps of pedagogy. But please listen to the podcast. I'd love to have every single one of you as a guest on the show because it's about the space, it's about the community, and it's about doing things together. What would you do? You showed up, and I'm really proud of you. And in case no one told you today, you matter. We'll see you next time.
Hey.